And we are here with Jonathan. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I'm excited to hear your story. It sounds fascinating. How are
Th-
you?
Thank you, Stephanie, for having me on your podcast. It's exciting to be here. I'm doing well, thank you. So my story, let's see, where do I even begin? So my journey started born and raised in the Catskill Mountains in New York. Father left me when and my younger brother when we were four. My mother was forced to take, three jobs, put food on the table, roof over our head and clothes on. And so we grew up fairly poor. I experienced some childhood trauma that I did not deal with for 46 of my soon to be 56 years old. And that was probably one of my top 10 biggest mistakes is to allow my childhood trauma, childhood experiences to be suppressed. Really was not able to connect with my emotions. And it only became worse and manifested during my active addiction years, which was around 2009, 10 to 15. But going through these challenges as a child, allowed me to find resilience prior to adopting a 12-step program, prior to commencement of my active addiction. But I still needed this fight. I still had obviously these fight or flight survival default mechanisms. So there were a lot of maladaptive behaviors. Uh, and so for me,
How did your drinking or drugging, how did it start? Because I know I started dabbling even in cocaine, which shocks people in high school. It was like a thing in high school. I don't know how old you are. I'm probably older than you, but did it start back then? Did it start when you were older?
yeah, so I'll be 56 in December. So for me, it started with we call it grass growing up, smoking cannabis, in high school and certainly in college often. The thought of even having an addiction at that point didn't enter my mind, but I know that I used cannabis for a very long period of time. And I certainly acknowledge today, as I reflect on my history of use, that I was addicted to cannabis.
Were you a
Uh,
pothead?
I suppose you could say that I grew up near Woodstock, so maybe so.
Were you like wake and bake? I mean, were you, there were the burnouts in high school. Did you hang
Yeah,
with
I
them?
think so. I think so. Yes, I definitely between me and my peers, I was probably the one that smoked daily. Perhaps starting in like my junior year of high school, and then took that into college, and of course within the fraternity scene, I just wanted to fit in because deep down inside, I still was really insecure, and I had low self-esteem. So for me, I was also a people pleaser, one of my million, former defects of character. Um, so cannabis was one. Alcohol, I could drink in moderation. I didn't really become addicted to alcohol, but as we go through my journey and my story, where I am today, I choose not to drink. Over 9.5 years sober, and I don't believe in substituting one addiction for another, meaning I do believe in it in the sense that I don't trust myself, right? I convinced myself that even though I wasn't an alcoholic or even though I wasn't addicted to this drug, I still have the mindset of an addict. And, I'm just as susceptible to a relapse as anyone who has one day or more or less, it doesn't matter. I run a strong program, but that I don't want to become complacent. So my drugs of choice that really got me in trouble was cocaine and gambling addiction. Gambling addiction for me spiraled out of control. I was a degenerate compulsive gambler. So by the time I graduated college, grew up in the Catskills, didn't really have a stable home environment. That followed me to attending three different universities before I graduated from that third one. Um,
Why do you think you switched it up?
So the first college I went to was Cedar Coast in Long Island, and I did really well academically, which was a surprise because I wasn't really this like great student in high school. From there, I decided, what, let me transfer to SUNY Albany, a state school in New York, where they had a better accounting program. So I received a bachelor's in accounting, and my best friend at the time was also transferring after his freshman year from Boston, and so we decided let's go to SUNY Albany. So at SUNY Albany, I found myself coming up with terrible ideas. I was around a lot of my peers who came from affluent backgrounds, and I again wanted to fit in, and I didn't have the financial wherewithal to kind of go out with them socially often. So I came up with this, what I'll deem in quotes, a brilliant idea. And that idea was, why don't I ask one of my fraternity brothers if he's interested, let's become bookies, because bookies win, right? I started gambling a little bit in college, but primarily the bookie was my worst period. It was a 2-week period. We lost $10,000. We were likely the only bookies in the United States or in the world that lost.
So
Um,
being a bookie is basically like being the house,
correct.
right? Like you're gambling other people's money, but is because you were being a bookie, you were taking their money, you were also making your own bets? Or what, how did you lose?
No, we decided not. I kept losing, making my own bets, so clearly I was not a great gambler. And that even gets worse later on in this journey. But I just wanted to be able to fit in. So, because in theory, bookies win. If a bookie does it correctly, they're going to, equal out the size of the bet. If it's a sporting event, they're gonna make sure that they just get 10% of the vig, and they don't care which team wins. And we weren't that bright at this point. So
Uh-huh.
so we lost. I left school because I couldn't afford to pay my half of the obligation. I left my fraternity brother in a really bad place. Moved to San Francisco because that's where my mother had relocated, and I finished up at San Francisco State about a year and a half. I left like my after my first semester junior year. I worked in the financial district of San Francisco for a sole practitioner CPA firm. Got my CPA designation. At this time, I had my first son of 3 sons and married to my high school sweetheart. And I realized that I really only took that job because I called my cousin. I have 7 CPAs in my family at this time when I graduated college, and one of them was a very well-respected music business manager. So I called him up and I said, "Cuz, you mentioned I can come work for you when I graduate college. I'm ready." He goes, "No, you're not. You're immature. You're irresponsible. What do you know about business management in the entertainment space?" And I said, "Okay, well, there goes my ego." And he said, "I want you to go to work for an accounting firm, hone your analytical skills, and I'll call you when I think you're ready." So that's why I took this job working in the financial district. After about 3.5, 4 years in that job, he called me and he said, "You're ready to come work for me." So at that point, still only had my oldest son, my wife, and we packed our little Honda Accord and we drove down south from San Francisco to LA. And I started working, as a CPA for his firm as a quasi business manager, not a partner at all. I was still a young person who needed a lot of knowledge and a lot. I had a lot to learn. So I was the first one in to his office. I was the last one out because I didn't want the word nepotism associated with me. I wanted to earn, you know, my stripes, if you will. And so I worked really hard. About 3.5 years into that career, in about 1999, 4 years into it, his firm was acquired by Chase Manhattan Bank, now JP Morgan. And he asked me if I wanted to get into family wealth management investment bank. I said, "Cuz, I love you, but no thank you. I would like to take a small book of business and join another firm." And so he gave me his blessing, which I appreciated. And in February of 2000, I joined a firm called GSO Business Management, where years later I became a partner. And that's where we represented a lot of high net worth celebrities, whether it was music, film, TV, professional athletes. It was nice. It was nice because I never got caught up in who my clients were. They put on socks and shoes. I often say the same way you and I put on socks and shoes. And I think that contributed to my success at that point in my career.
But at the beginning, were you impressed at all? I mean, it sounds like you didn't want to do personal wealth management. So did it seem more exciting to be in the entertainment area?
It seemed sexier, sure.
Yeah.
Um, as long as, I treated everyone like a human being and not like I didn't put them up on a pedestal. I did that. I had that career for about 16 plus years. And I would say the first 10 years, it was just great. I mean, I was building a really nice practice.
What about your pot use? Were you still like a daily pot smoker?
No, so once I once I started my career, I didn't smoke pot. I did.
Like at
I'm
all?
not sure. I did in moderation. I did in moderation. So probably in moderation is probably like 3 times a week instead of every day.
Isn't that the
Uh,
tricky thing? That's what messes with you because I feel like a lot of addicts go through periods where they can do things in moderation. So it's really hard to see yourself as an addict or to really recognize the spiral because, it's our thinking. But I just feel like, I mean, I had so many long periods where I did not drink alcoholically, until I did. But yeah, so I could always look back and go, but what about that part of my life? I wasn't like drinking like this. Anyway, go on.
no, I mean, listen, probably my wife probably thought I was definitely addicted to it, but in that I didn't, I had my ego was getting pretty high. And so I was in denial that I was an addict. And I was in denial for a very long time, frankly, but not just with cannabis. Then, we fast forward to probably the year where now I started gambling every day. Um, I mean, literally every day for 6 years.
What did that look like? Like, what kind of gambling? Were you going to Vegas? Were you just doing sports betting? Like, how did it start and how did it get crazy?
So the first entree was that brilliant decision of being a bookie, right? But then
Right.
that was definitely in moderation. One time subs after that, working for my cousin at his firm, his partner asked if I wanted to place a bet. I did. So that was like my second time. But they didn't last like for periods beyond, call it the episodic day or 2 weeks of college, and call it the day that my cousin's partner asked me if I wanted to do that. But in 2010, I started to gamble every day on sports because I met my assistant coach. I was coaching my kids' youth sports teams, and one of the assistant coach said, "Hey, do you want to gamble? Do you like sports?" I love sports. Started out placing a small bet. That small bet became I'm starting to chase. I'm making, really good money now. Um, to the outer world as we present in the big book, I was putting up this facade. I was now living a double life. I'm hiding this dark secret every day for 6 years of gambling. I would call a bookie in the morning. I would not be emotionally present for my family. I thought I was a good dad, but turns out I wasn't a great dad because even coaching the games, I'm looking at my phone for scores. And then at some point toward tail end of, and, this is when I'm embezzling from some clients now. So in
But
2000.
you have skipped a little bit. I want to hear like like, first of all, I commend you for talking about gambling. I don't hear about it enough on this show, and gambling is one of the hardest, I mean, one of the most intense addictions. And I know that it has one the highest rate of suicide
Yes.
too. So because I guess maybe the incredible risks it leads you to take with your family, with everything. So the fact that you're here is pretty amazing and willing to tell the story. But I just wonder because I feel like with gambling addicts, there's something different about your brain because even as an addict myself, I can gamble and it doesn't give me the same hit. It's like fun and it's distracting. I'll play a little online poker, but it never drives me to do more. So did you recognize that right at the beginning? Because it sounds like you're saying you weren't present, but did you already know that? Did you feel really hooked right away? How did that
Oh
work?
yeah. So I'm a therapist now at a substance use treatment center. So I now, one of my thesis papers I wrote about was the adverse childhood experiences, and also how addiction and or mental health can be transmitted from one generation to another. And I don't use that as an excuse, but my father was a gambling addict and a cocaine addict. And I was searching for the why, and I say that again because that is clinically speaking the why, but at some point, the disease is the disease, and then we have a choice. I had a choice, and I chose to continue to gamble and make poor choices. So I was not it wasn't like a dopamine rush for me, not like cocaine was. The dopamine rush was non-existent. It was living in fear that now I'm starting to not just gamble, but instead of taking money from my own bank account, which we had significant money, I had this fear that if I started doing that out of my own bank account, my wife would know about it. Perhaps my kids would then know about it. And I'm just living this double life, keeping a secret. And so I said, let me just borrow from client one of, let's say, 5 direct victims of my crime. And the hope was to pay back victim number 1 the following week. But now the following week comes and I'm losing and I'm betting even more and more amounts on a daily basis. It's spiraling out of control. And now I'm actually stealing money. Like, how could I do this? Like, where's this moral compass I thought I had? So clearly I didn't have a moral compass, at least that, as much as I thought I did, so I violated my fiduciary responsibility. I started gambling literally every day. There was not a single day in the 6-year period that I didn't gamble. The monies became enormous. And the mindset of a gambler, to go back to sort of your comment earlier, is one of grandiosity. So despite having all the material things, which weren't that important to me, but they were really important to, let's say my wife or others to have the nice this, the nice that, because I was miserable deep down inside, the material things didn't bring me joy. Money didn't even bring me joy. But I was gambling not because I needed the money, because I was chasing the amounts of money I was embezzling, and I really wanted to pay these clients off. And that never happened until the end of my demise, which we'll get to later. But that was my motivation, for lack of a better word, to continue to gamble with this mindset of a gambler's grandiosity. Oh, I'll win $7 million back this week, and no problem. Really, you haven't even won one day, let alone $7 million in a weekend. But that's the mindset I had. It's
But
not the
the person that you was placing the bets when you started with your kids' school sports, not school sports, your kids' sports, did that person start to see, like, was that person also a gambling addict? You don't have to out them, but like, or was that person like, whoa, Jonathan, like, enough?
No, he didn't. Because what I learned in the 6 years of gambling with him, after the first 4 years, originally, he presented himself as he's like a professional poker player, but also dabbles his career is to commercial real estate. So he said, "Because of the amounts you're betting, no one's gonna place your bets." I never had a bookie before, so I'm like, "Okay, will you place my bets for me?" He said, "Sure." So, the way the betting world works is that if I lose, I'm making this up, $1,000, I owe him 1,100, 10% of my loss, because 10% goes to the bookie. Well, he would take the 10% of my losses and also 10% of my winnings. So that seemed a little bit weird to me at first, but I was so desperate to chase, I ignored that formula that he said, if you will. And about 4 years into the 6 years, I realized he was the bookie. He presented as if he's the conduit entity that's helping me. He kept presenting, "I'm helping you, no one else would do this, blah, blah, blah." So needless to say, that person's not in my life today. Um, but it was my mistake for being so naive. And s and so at the end of this run, as you said earlier, you're 100% correct. I worked at the suicide prevention crisis line, largest one in the country, as a shift supervisor on the overnight shift, because I wanted to understand, this was post my addiction.
Yeah.
I wanted to understand the population, of people that are calling, and that how that population correlates statistically to suicidal ideation, and does it go beyond that to means, attempt, and plan, etcetera. But I would honestly say that I experienced suicidal ideation probably toward the tail end of my gambling run, because I just couldn't look myself in the mirror anymore. I lived in fear every day that I was gonna get caught taking money from people who I actually cared about. When I say that, sometimes, people will say, "This guy's lying. How could he say he cared for someone, yet he stole from them?" That's fair for someone to say. I'm not here to judge others and their opinions. They're entitled to that. But I sincerely did care for them. Again, the logic was I was gonna pay them all back.
It's addiction. I think, you know, when people really understand addiction, then you understand how you can feel pulled to repeat the same behaviors and think that you're going to fix it at some point. I mean, with
Exactly.
anything, with drinking, you think, okay, I did something that was harmful, that I risked hurting someone in my family, but I won't do that again. I next time it'll be different. I don't think that it's easy to believe you didn't care.
Yeah, and you know, the truth is I'm at a place now where I have humility and I also am not seeking external validation from others like I did as a people pleaser in active addiction. I seek that validation intrinsically, and for me, that helps me in my recovery and just helps me every day try to be a better person. But those were dark times for me, those 6 years.
And was the cocaine like, tell me about that too.
So a funny story with the cocaine. There's a few funny stories we'll get to. One is my assistant at the time one day came into the office and I said, "What'd you do last night?" She said, "I was at a restaurant with my girlfriend and this waitress came over to us and asked if we did cocaine." I said, "Well, what did you say?" She said, "Well, we don't do cocaine." I said, "Okay." Well, it turned out though that the peer pressure got to her and her friend, and they went in the bathroom with this waitress. So my thing was, I'm already in the beginning phases, the infancy stage of my degenerate gambling. I said, actually midway through, excuse me. I said, "Can I please have her phone number?" She says, "Why do you want her phone?" I was, "You know what? I used to dibble dabble in cocaine in college, maybe like 2, 3 times a year." And that truly was in moderation, right? But you know what? She doesn't know I'm gambling. She doesn't know that I'm hurting deeply inside, that I'm tired of presenting myself as Superman when I'm really this weak, insecure guy that just has to pretend so that I can maintain the client book of business and continue to
But
work.
you don't know this about yourself at the time.
Um, well, I knew I was insecure and I knew I had low self-esteem. Um, because again, I hadn't dealt with my childhood trauma. I didn't have the courage to ask for help or seek help. So I wanted to escape to cocaine because I couldn't look myself in the mirror anymore.
So were you depressed?
Oh, situationally depressed, daily didn't sleep. I had to take sleeping aids to sleep. My wife didn't even know why or that I was even taking it. Um, I literally would hear a siren. I'd get scared. I'm going to get caught. At some point, I became careless and wanted to get caught because I literally couldn't deal with this. So eventually, I'm out in Tampa Bay where one of my clients I represented was starting her rehearsals for a tour and I get a call from my former partners. This is like in end of 15, early 16.
Wait,
Toward
are we skipping to you getting caught?
that's where we're going now. Do you wanna wait?
Yeah, because I want to hear about, so you didn't finish telling me about the waitress that you
Okay.
called to get cocaine.
Thank you for stopping me. So yes, so I called her and, she became my supplier, my drug dealer. I would meet her daily. I was 24/7, canceling meetings, waking up with, sheets soaked, heart racing, and I have heart disease. So that's why the experts believe that I was trying to off myself, if you will. And, you know, in hindsight, I was, but I was able to identify my 3 sons at this point in my life and even my wife and my mother as reasons to live, but I'd be dishonest if I didn't say that it was a pretty intense thought, you know, that could have led to an attempt, and maybe the cocaine was that attempt. Um,
So you're doing cocaine every single day. Your wife is not noticing
correct, correct.
or doing it with you.
She's not doing it with me.
So
Yeah.
it's totally secret. So this is where you start having like real double life.
The real double life, like, literally no one knew. I didn't even know the real Jonathan Schwartz. Like, I didn't know who my authentic self was. I'm chasing the money to pay back the clients. I'm escaping through numbing myself vis-a-vis cocaine.
But what is your like personal life like? Like you're married, you're waking up in a sweat, you can't sleep. Are you having like date night? Like are you pretending to be normal or how's that working?
So this was a period of time where my wife and I were sort of, like, separating. Uh,
Okay.
so the cocaine didn't start until we separated. And
Got
so I
it.
was living in another home and I moved out of the house, et cetera, because she didn't know about the early years of active addiction with the gambling only either. But as a result of the gambling addiction and the behaviors associated with it, I was not a good husband. I did commit infidelity. Um, every choice I made was a poor choice. I mean, I don't think I made a poor choice in those years. I mean, a good choice, excuse me.
Well, you were fucked up.
I totally was. I was not, yeah, I was. But you know what? We'll get to that later in terms of how we make amends. But yeah, so during this period, I was doing the coke, buying it, heart racing, like I said, and then, then I realized it's time for me to I couldn't stop on my own, right? So I didn't ask for help. I continued this whole cycle, and I finally, now we can fast forward to the point where I get caught.
So
It,
meanwhile, you're working for some big musicians.
yes.
I know from your bio, Beyonce. And
Yeah.
then this story is about Alanis Morissette, if we can say that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can. You could talk about that because she's the only, so of the five, six victims, people always make fun of me when I say five, six. I really don't know, to be honest, because I never, I don't want to go back and read court documents. I don't want to go back and look at the accounting. When I heard the amount of money that I embezzled, I was like, are you kidding me? It was that much. Like I never paid attention to it because I was so naive. I'm thinking I'm just going to win this back. And that's that mindset. So it was, yeah, I was in a bad place. I was in a dark place. So the cocaine didn't stop until I got caught.
Okay.
And so how I got caught was so Alanis we can talk about because she was the only one that went public. She spoke eloquently at my sentencing on May 3rd, 2017. I mean, I if I was the judge, I would have thrown a hammer at myself as well. I reached a before we get to the plea agreement and all that, I was celebrating. I want to rewind a little bit to give you some more context. So while I was separated with my wife, in December of 2015, we started to kind of date again. And we on May of two in 2016, was our anniversary. I said, why don't we just go and celebrate at a hotel in Santa Barbara? And she said, okay. So now I'm doing cocaine in the bathroom. She has no idea I'm doing cocaine in the bathroom. And I get a call from one of my former partners because I had to return home from Beyonce was the one on tour and I had to return home from her tour because my partners said that Alanis fired me. Alanis's business manager happened to be my cousin who came back into business management. That's ironic, no pun intended with Alanis, but the irony here is that my cousin, after going to Chase Manhattan Bank, decided years after his contract was over, he would start a new firm again and his partner, Alanis fired me at the end of 2015, and she chose his firm. So his firm's calling my partners while I'm in Tampa Bay with Beyonce on her tour or rehearsals. And the partners call me and say, so Alanis doesn't understand where this $4.6 million where did it go? In my still denial, I don't know how I came up with this concocted story, but one of my million lies. I said, "Oh, she was investing in a cannabis business. Why don't I get on a plane? I'll come back. I'll prove it to you. I have her signature." I did not have her signature authorizing it. I'm lying to my partners. I'm lying to everybody. And I fly home, and I meet with them, and they have their attorneys, my partners, and I told them like, I'm still now I actually have an ego coming. It's surfacing more and more. And I said with this tremendous ego, I said, you know what, guys, if you don't believe me, it's the manipulation, right? If you don't believe me, just give me a lie detector test. So I thought that I didn't have to take the lie detector test. I was kind of playing poker with them. So this weekend, now that I referred to a few moments ago, I get a call from one of my partners, and he said, "You remember a week or two ago where you said you would take a lie detector test? We want you to take one tomorrow. Come down to Beverly Hills and take a lie detector test." And I said, "Okay." And now I'm really high on cocaine, and now for the very first time, I have to tell my wife what I've been doing for 6 years. As you
Oh,
can
you
imagine.
decided to come clean to her before taking the lie detector. You didn't think like maybe I can pass this.
Oh, I did, and I'll tell you how why. But I had the reason I told her right then and there was, um, she was gonna I couldn't say, "Hey, I'm gonna go to" I had to tell her why I was going to an hour and a half away from Santa Barbara to Beverly Hills, so I just and plus I wasn't really thinking logically.
Oh, you're on the trip. Okay.
Now I'm leaving, yeah, we're at a
You're
hotel
with her.
celebrating, I'm with her.
It's all coming together now. Okay.
Sorry, I'm the best storyteller.
No,
So
you're a great storyteller. I'm just trying to keep up.
so I hang up the phone, I say, "Listen, this is what I've been doing." And I've also been doing cocaine and gambling and lying to you. And she was naturally in shock. And I said, if you don't mind, I have to go tomorrow to take a lie detector test. But you know what? I'm going to beat this because right now I'm going to Google how to beat a lie detector test.
Which seems harder on Coke too.
Oh, not only it only gets
How do you
worse.
keep your heart rate down?
Well, that's well, you're going to hear what another poor choice I made relative to cocaine. So she says, she wasn't supportive. She wasn't not supportive. She was just like in shock. And so the next morning I wake up, happens to be May 8th, 2016. And I'm take all the cocaine I can take in my car. I place my last bet with my bookie. I snort lines and lines and lines the whole way from Santa Barbara. Who goes into a lie detector test on a stimulant but me? So I went in, I met with the former FBI's number one polygrapher. I walk in there with such arrogance. I put my feet up on his desk. We're having this conversation. It's like a 2-hour conversation. And I'm thinking to myself this whole time, wow, I'm building this amazing rapport with this guy. He likes me. Well, it turns out the part about the Google that I didn't understand or didn't pay attention to was he's the one that's establishing the rapport with me. So eventually, obviously, he hooks me up. I take the test. I leave. I call my wife. I'm like, I'll be back. Let's hope you had a good day at the spa, whatever you did. Let's go enjoy a nice dinner. When I get back to the hotel and I try and log into my computer, I have no access anymore to my phone. And so I call my assistant, the one we talked about earlier, and she said she has access. So I'm like, okay, this could be this crossroad moment. So I call my attorney, who at the time is Nathan Hochman. He's now the district attorney in Los Angeles. I said, Nathan, can you just tell me how I did? Did you hear from the polygraph? He goes, Jonathan, you failed that test worse than anybody in the polygrapher's career. I said,
Oh my
okay,
God.
so I said, so when you say I failed, like, what does this mean? Like, he goes, well, Jonathan, you are facing 23 years in federal prison and you need to come see me tomorrow. We need to work out a strategy. So, needless to say, my wife did accompany me to that meeting, and I'm grateful that Nathan was able to negotiate a 4 to 6 year plea agreement. Um, so I'm fast forward on May 3rd, 2017, I was sentenced to 6 years in federal prison for white collar crime of wire fraud and tax fraud. And it was at that time I was really angry with, 6 years. In the courtroom, I was really hurt to see some of my family members on the federal side. Um, but as I've had time to reflect, and one of my strongest beliefs today, among many that are congruent with pro recovery behavior and thinking, is certain family members would not have been on the side of the federal government if I didn't do what I did. And that's the way that I very big and on personal accountability. And for me, it's important and to own my side of the street. And whatever anyone did, or anyone who doesn't want to forgive me, or anyone who doesn't want me to allow me to make amends, I understand. I hurt so many people. I hurt my 3 beautiful sons. I hurt my wife. I hurt my stepfather. I hurt my mom. I hurt my former partners, my staff, the community of people in the community we lived, and I hurt myself. And I don't play the self-pity victim role. Um, I came home in 2020. I did about 30.
Wait, so you went to prison.
I did.
What was that day like?
So I surrendered on July 11th, 2017.
Did you
Which
read any books about like how to handle being in prison?
I
Like, did you
actually
prepare yourself mentally? Were you sober at this time? Like,
So great questions. I did retain a prison consultant because I was afraid, like I was like the movies, like I was gonna get raped. Like, what am I gonna? I want to understand what I'm walking into. He was really nice. He assured me, he gave me a lot of his time. He also, most importantly, assured my younger son at that time, who was scared for me. I did enter before sentencing, about a year before sentencing. I was on pretrial for 14 months. I went to Beth Teshuva, which is a gambling and drug treatment center. I didn't go there for the right reasons, frankly. I went there because they also have an alternative sentencing department, and I was hoping that that sentencing department would help mitigate the judge's sentence. It didn't help, because as the judge said, and I today acknowledge the audaciousness of my crime were the exact words. I'm going to give him the 6 years, which is the top. She could have given me more. I mean, she could have deviated outside that 4 to 6 year plea agreement. I'm grateful that she didn't. At that time, 6 years seemed like an eternity. So now, on July 11th, 2000,
Wait, so did you get, so you went to Beth Yeshiva, Beth, is that, and
at Teshuva.
Beth Yeshiva, and did you get sober?
Um,
Even though you were there for the wrong reasons,
I
were,
got sober, yes. So my sober date is May 9th, 2016. So the day after I took the polygraph test, promised myself, and I just had to stop cold turkey because the 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 consequences already are severe. And if I continue to do this, you know, me earning back the trust of anybody I love is going to be really remote. And it's still today, many of those relationships, I'm still trying to earn back 10 years later. Um, but it was, uh, it was hard going to prison. When I entered prison, I cried for the first probably good 6 months every night, until a nice gentleman came up to me and he said, I went to Sheridan, Oregon. That was the first of two prisons that I went to. And needless to say, I have no desire to ever go visit Oregon again. But but when I went to prison, I was a little baby. I was crying. I was scared. I was nervous. I had a type A personality. I needed to be in control. You get 15 minutes on the phone, to speak to my younger son, and that's, not being able to ask him how he's getting a report card from him or understanding his, God forbid he has to go to a doctor. It was really hard for me because I historically have liked to control things, and to lose that control was also one of the other variables in me learning how to be humble. And to be honest, as much as I was scared, I really did good work in prison. I helped a lot of inmates with accounting. I taught education. I ran a victim impact program where I wanted the I did it for about a year there. I wanted the inmates to understand that each of us has a victim, direct or indirect. And the ones that had the hardest time acknowledging that were the drug dealers. And the drug dealers would say, Jonathan, what do you mean I have victims? I mean, if I didn't sell drugs, someone else would have sold drugs. Well, that's not the point. The point is you did sell drugs. And not only that, you don't know who became an addict. You don't know who may have died from an overdose. You don't know the families that you've ruptured by selling to this person or that person. And then maybe about a week or two later, they come back and say, you know what, I've had time to think about it and you're right. And what was so beautiful about the impact that that had on me was as I'm sitting there and hearing these people that have taken my course there talk differently to their baby mama, their loved one. And instead of calling them expletives on the phone and not appreciating that you're here in prison and your girlfriend or your wife is home taking care of your children, now they're saying, I'm sorry. Thank you for looking after our kids while I'm here. That made a world of difference to me. And that's sort of why, um, later on, you'll find out why I chose the career I'm in now.
can I just ask one question though? I, I think it's very relatable. So you went to treatment just for yourself, just to try to get a reduced sentence. But when did you have the psychic change? Because it sounds like once you were in prison, you did take accountability and responsibility and see that. And did you acknowledge that you were an addict? Like, when did that psychic change happen?
So when I was on pre-sentencing, I was working with a sponsor at the same time. He's a man who saved my life. And he started me with step one. And I said to him, mind you, at this point, I still had an ego. I said to him, I don't understand me, powerlessness and unmanageable. I don't understand these instructions like me. And he said, schmuck. You're facing 23 years in federal prison. You don't think your life's unmanageable and you're powerless over that? I said, you're right. Let's get started on these 12 steps. So that was the moment where my ego started to decrease and I wasn't fully humble yet, but I understood the importance of humility and surrendering to a higher power and dropping that ego. So he walked me through the steps before I entered prison.
Okay.
there was AA in prison, so I attended AA meetings there. It wasn't until I entered prison and started to transition I was counting the days, and as I said about this man who saw me crying every day, he said, "Jonathan, you gotta stop counting the days." Like, I'm counting 6 years is a long time. He goes, "What you if you count the days, you're gonna continue to drive yourself crazy." So what I did was I counted the Super Bowls that I have left in prison. So every Super Bowl will be 1 year down or 2 years down. And to be honest, I would say a good handful of guys that I met in both prisons that I was at, I remain friends with today. They're good people. And I've learned also not to judge people when I went into prison because you have people from all socioeconomic classes, you know, just multicultural differences. And for me, with the ego that I once had, I was judgmental on people. Once I entered prison, I learned a lot about humility. I learned a lot about not judging a book by its cover. When you really get to know these people as I did, they, to some degree, have the same concerns and experiences and values. They all have children they love. Many of them, some don't accept responsibility and many do. And they're really, for the most part, I was blessed to meet some really interesting people who really took me under their wings and helped me. And I wanted to pay that forward to those that came in as well. But I went to Sheridan, Oregon because they had a residential drug alcohol program, which took a year off my sentence.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
So after it was the only West Coast federal prison camp that had this program. So after I graduated, I put in a request to transfer locally to close to home here in LA to Taft, which was the only private federal prison camp in the country. The interesting thing about that camp, first of all, I was vegan the whole time. I'm vegan, so it was really hard in Sheridan. I could only eat beans and rice. And then when I transferred to Taft, they had all these vegetables, and I was eating vegetables. And not that that was like a great experience, but it was certainly better than Sheridan.
Yeah.
But I had to get on Con Air with all different security levels from Oregon to they took us on, US Marshals took us with their guns ablazing, and it was really scary to be with a higher level of security. From there, they land in Nevada in Pahrump as a detention center, so I stayed in the detention center for a year,
A
and that was
year?
I'm sorry, a month, excuse me,
Oh,
for a month, and that was a tough month because you got all these different levels of security, and there's lots of fights, and I didn't get into one fight, I kept my head down, and one day I just got a call that the van is ready to take me to Taft, and I met another set of really good guys there, and my kids did visit me there once or twice, my
did
mom.
anybody visit you in Oregon?
Yeah, I had a couple people visit, that was, like, the best time when you knew you had a visitor coming. um
How long were you in Oregon?
I was in Oregon for about 28 months
Oh, wow. Okay. So over
and
2 years.
over 2
Did your
years.
kids get ever come?
So, my younger son is the I have 3 boys. My youngest one is the only one I talk to today. Now fast forward 10 years. Um, we speak every day. He did come to visit me twice in Sheridan, Oregon, and then I was blessed that my mother was able to convince my 2 older boys to come visit me with them. And, that was tough, excuse me, it brings tears to my eyes. Um, sorry,
No, you're making me emotional. That sounds so hard.
it was. So excuse me. So I got to see them, they looked handsome and beautiful and doing well. Um, today, I do speak to my older son about 4 times a year. We go out to lunch or dinner. He doesn't call me dad, he calls me Jonathan, but again, that's the consequence of my poor choice. My middle son doesn't talk to me at all, but to be honest, um, I surrender to my higher power daily and ask that when they're ready, they'll come back in my life.
Yeah. Sounds like you're doing everything that you can do.
Absolutely. God, I haven't cried like this in a while, and I do love crying, but I haven't done that like this. So thank you for bringing that out in me. um, so now I come home. I'm let out early because of COVID and my heart condition.
Oh, okay.
So I didn't go directly to a halfway house. I was able to go directly on home confinement with an ankle monitor for 16 months. And that was really difficult because you're not allowed freedom of movement. You can only go grocery shopping once a week. You can only go to doctor. So I'm a Jewish hypochondriac, so I went to every doctor I could just to get out of the apartment. Um, but I couldn't get a job. I was a felon, so I took a job at Dunkin' Donuts. I got fired after 2 months, but I needed more humility. I did come out with very little ego, but I still needed real humility, and that helped me get there.
You really couldn't get another job besides Dunkin' Donuts?
No, because first of all, I'm certainly not welcome back in the entertainment space, and who's gonna hire me, as an accountant? And I didn't wanna do that anymore. Like, I didn't there's so many phony people in the entertainment community. I needed to be with people who are healthy for my recovery, and, even if I was welcomed back, I would decline the invitation just because I surround myself and immerse myself daily with so many sober people, and that's usually my inner circle that I associate with.
So you
So
come back, so you go home, but I'm assuming that you're not married anymore at this point.
correct. We got divorced in 17.
But you had a house to go back to.
So the irony here is that I was dating a woman before I left for prison, and we were in quasi engaged, and so she was my point of contact, so she had to pick me up. But she didn't come to visit me a lot. I could talk when I would did talk to her on the phone, I could hear a guy in the background, but I became codependent on leaving prison with someone that could pick me up and maybe I could have be a better version of myself in an intimate relationship. Well, when she picked me up, which she was hesitant to do, there was no hugs or kisses. It was like, "Hey, you're gonna come sleep. I'm gonna let you sleep in my apartment, but you're gonna sleep on the couch." And we didn't communicate for 2 months, and then I realized she was cheating on me, even though all the inmates would tell each other, "You're so naive. Of course she's cheating on you." So, because I was on now, the home confinement, I was restricted to that apartment address. So they allowed me to move on those grounds to a different apartment. It was a studio apartment. It's all I could afford. In fact, I couldn't even afford that. My mom was helping me. All my assets were seized. So I'm looking outside my studio apartment almost every day, and she's there with her boyfriend. So I'm thinking, God, what's my higher power what message is this? And so did play the self-pity for about 9 months on the couch crying and woo me. And then now, in hindsight, I look back and that was like the best message my higher power could have given me. He says, Schmuck, you cheated on your wife. Now you know how it feels to be cheated on. So today I'm blessed to be in a healthy relationship where there's trust, where I would never cheat on a woman again. And I don't like to use absolutes like never, but the likelihood of me relapsing not relapsing, but committing any infidelity or not being uber respectful to my partner would be remote today. Um, so after I didn't, after I got fired from Dunkin' Donuts, I took
Why'd
another
you get fired?
because I wasn't cleaning the countertops well and mopping the floor. So,
Now that is some irony. That is like, listen, if I had a job at Dunkin' Donuts, I would for sure get fired quickly. My first job ever was at Burger King and I got fired. I got suspended and then I quit because I knew they were going to fire me for having a kind of a bad attitude.
fair. So from there, I decided, okay, what am I going to do? I took one other job, but like, what am I going to do? Like, what's my passion? And my passion was like, I don't want people to make the same mistakes that I made. I made a lot of mistakes. How can I help them? So I went to addiction studies school, got my KDAC, and then I went to grad school to become an LMFT. And today I make very little money, but I'm the happiest I've ever been. Every day I walk into Altus Rehab, which is a 6-bed luxury detox and residential in Encino, California. Dual
That's where
diagnosis.
I live.
Oh, really?
Hmm.
Okay, so yes, I'll be heading there after our podcast today.
Okay.
So I get to work for an amazing boss. And today being humble, I just love the fact that I have a boss. I love walking in and asking the clients before any therapy. I lead groups there as well, but how are you doing? How can I help? And it's just making a difference, or at least trying to make a difference. I've learned early on as a therapist that as much as I want to help everybody, you may not be the fit for everybody. You're certainly not going to be the fit for everybody. But I get the greatest joy today in helping others, you know, accomplish their goals, to put them in a position where they can maintain a sustainable recovery. They got to put in the work. I put in a lot of work, and I continue to put in a lot of work. I'm very active today in the Los Angeles intergroup of Gamblers Anonymous. I was the co-chairman for a year. I was a secretary for a year. I'm now the secretary of my home group meeting in Westlake Village. I don't say that for any other reason to just say, for me, um, I can say today that I'm proud of who I've become and who I'm becoming. I don't live in my past, but I don't forget my past. I still try to do the next right thing on a daily basis. I'm not perfect, but I try. And I hope one day my 2 and my 3 sons will be able to see that. Um, and aside from that, it's just rewarding for me. Like, I go paycheck to paycheck, but the reward is knowing that I'm helping people. And that really is what my purpose in life is all about today. And that's why I'm on, like, your podcast, to try and spread the message to people. Like, if I can do it, you can do it. And there's so many great tools to incorporate.
I think one thing I'm really hearing from your story, which resonates with me, is the staying in the middle part. When it's, how do I put this? Because the program is attraction, not promotion. So
Yes,
so whatever you're doing, whatever, not you personally, but whatever one is doing, if they're trying to be sober, it's important to be part of community and give back. Because I know for me, when I tend to drift away, because, I've been sober 16 years, and there's times where, it just all sort of seems like a drag, and you're like, really? Like, and to me, like, a lot of it's like the higher power stuff, the religion stuff. Sometimes it gets grating, and I tend to find excuses to not go to my meetings or whatever. But I always notice that feeling of, I feel like it's within all addicts, that feeling of not necessarily glorifying the past, but going, I wasn't that bad. It's very easy to do that when you're not around people who are struggling, people that are having the same feelings that I had when I was newly sober. And when you see it in other people, and when they look to you, or when you have really honest conversations with people, you remember, oh, yeah, I'm here for a reason. And just that whole being in the middle, you have somewhere to go every day. You're enmeshed in this, helping people with sobriety. It's very hard to drift away from that. It's your job, it's your friends. And I think it's really important for anybody, as a message to people that are struggling, even if you don't believe that you have a problem, but you have to stop, like, for whatever reason, if it's court ordered, whatever, but you're still feeling like, this isn't me and I'm not like these people. The longer you're with people, that's why they say keep coming back.
absolutely. Absolutely. I agree with everything you just said. Yeah, listen, there's so many great tools that, we could help people acquire, whether it's whatever relapse prevention, whether there's psychoeducation, CBT, and there's so many great modalities out there today to help everyone that wants to help, but they have to want to help. And they, like you said, they have to put in the work. This is a life program for me. Uh, I I try to live according to the principles of the program on a daily basis, but as I said a little while ago, I'm not perfect. But, I measure my progress by comparing and contrasting a lot of my behaviors on a given day from how I would have behaved or thought in active addiction compared to how I'm behaving and thinking today. And for me, that goes back to what I talked about earlier. That's my way of validating myself that I'm making progress, because obviously this is a program where we're not seeking perfection, rather progress. So for me, I'm blessed today, despite all my challenges. Today I view challenges as an opportunity. Um, I can ask for help if I need help. As you heard, I can cry. I love to cry. It's a way to connect with my emotions, and that's something that I didn't do, like as I said earlier in the podcast, in active addiction or even prior to active addiction. So I've made a lot of progress, and I look forward to making more progress as the day progresses today.
Be cool if you were part of, like, a program for men in prison, but from the outside.
So I did do that when I came back. So I was at Altus and I asked my boss if I could take a few months off and go work at a treatment center to help people that were formerly incarcerated. And so that was my way of giving back to the incarcerated community. And to be honest, like I said earlier, it's just nice to work with people. I mean, I love my favorite night of the week is Tuesday night going to my home group and just the commonality in those rooms, in any room, and, I don't preach the 12 steps, they work for me, but there are other fellowships, as you know, as well as I do, whether it's
Yeah.
DART or SMART or even someone's own church or synagogue, whatever works for them, the whole concept, as you know, is community, and creating boundaries with people who are unhealthy, I've made amends to most people, um, I try to establish healthy boundaries. I do have a quality inner circle today, not a quantity inner circle. Um, but if I think I got this thing, then and become complacent, then I'm in trouble. So
Yeah.
that's not something I'm trying to adopt.
Yeah. What an amazing message. I thank you so much. And is there somewhere, are you writing a book?
So I had a ghostwriter that I just recently let go. I don't have a book, but my intention is to eventually have a book and a movie followed by, touring and helping people. I want to be the male version of Brene Brown. I really want to help people give those messages, like to be vulnerable, to be authentic, to be transparent. But I do have an Instagram. It's called The Real Jonathan Schwartz.
Okay.
It's got a small following. Not that popular, but that's my Instagram for today.
Now you will be after this audience hears your
All
Instagram.
right.
The real Jonathan, I will put that in the description. And you
Thank
have a website.
I don't have a website, but our treatment center does. It's called Altus Rehab. Like my website is pretty much my social media, if you will.
Oh, okay. I thought I looked at your website. Maybe I didn't.
It's okay. It's okay. If I have
I
a
if I
website,
find if
if you
I have
find it, let me know. That shows you how active I am in my branding.
I think you do.
It's
Okay, well,
on.
I'm gonna do because when I got the email, I could click on your name and I thought it brought me to your website, but you're so humble, you don't even know about your website.
Yeah, I don't.
Okay, well, everything will be in the description. I thank you so much for sharing your story. It's really a beautiful story, and you have a beautiful message. And I really appreciated your honesty. And thank you, everybody. I will see you next week.
Feeling like life is good, yeah. Life is good.